Hey guys, it's Joe at JayPhoenixMusic, and today I'm going to show you the 3 things that I did to help set up a piano solo in my newest release, Y.D.A.M, featuring Kittrix, released by UFO RECORDZ. Let's check it out. Thank you so much for watching the newest video of my video series. As usual, make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you could always follow what I'm doing at JayPhoenixMusic.com. Also, if you're in need of any musical services, just DM me for rates or with any music-related questions that I might be able to help you with. And if I'm not able to, then at least I could direct you to one of my talented friends who probably can. Lastly, your love and support is what keeps me going. So if you like what I do and want to be a part of me doing this full time, please share this video or any of my music via social media. Happy for any shout outs, any love there. And then you could also fly over to my Patreon as well to see more ways to support this channel. So today is my second in the studio recording, which I'm excited about. I finally figured out how to link the QuickTime or the whatever this is, the QuickTime player, and also record my own vocals, that kind of stuff. It's complicated. You always see all these tutorials and it looks so easy, but then when you try and do it yourself, it's like, what the hell is this? But yeah, everything's all connected. And today I wanted to show you something. I really like this song. I did it with Kittrix. It's called Y.D.A.M, Your Dreams Are Mine. It was called I Bet. And then she was saying how she wanted to have something a little bit more hip, essentially. And she said, oh, why don't Y.D.A.M? Because she liked that line, Your Dreams Are Mine. And in any case, so what I did in this song, what I thought was pretty cool is it's just a house track. But what I did is I added a piano solo in it. So for me, as usual, if you go to my Instagram, I'm all about incorporating jazz and classical music ideas with pop and EDM. So what I did was I was like, okay, so I'm doing this track with Kittrix. And from the beginning, I was like, it'd be cool if I did a song because she has a really cool style. And I was just thinking, what if I want to be able to start adding some of these like elements, like jazz elements, specifically like adding like a roaring piano solo, because I feel like a lot of EDM today relies on using like big synths and these big like sound designy things that really blow you away. And I feel like there's a lack of compositional depth or compositional impact in a lot of this music. So, you know, obviously they'll do the synths and the walks and the dubs, and it's all great. But I feel like, you know, obviously classical music, you have people in the 1800s who just blow you away, and they didn't have the big subwoofers and weren't able to crank it up. They weren't like, oh yeah, come on, Beethoven, just like crank it up to whatever and push the limiter a little bit more so we could really make these people feel something. Like they had to actually rely heavily not on technical sound design elements, but compositional elements, and to really bring out these emotions that some of these pop tracks can bring out just because you could play it really loud and make it, you know, mix it really clear, that kind of stuff. So I want to really start adding some compositional elements to pop music. That way, you know, not only are you hearing these big synths like what Kittrix uses in her drops, but you're getting this really, you're getting hit from the compositional side. So you're just getting kind of hit from these different, you know, angles or whatever. So to bring it to the 3 things that I did, first thing I did was foreshadowing. Second thing I did was find a spot in the song where it makes sense to introduce a new idea. And then the third thing I did was create space to essentially, you know, bring focus to this new idea. So, you know, the video is 3 ways that I incorporated this piano solo, but really what it is you could, it doesn't have to be a piano solo. It could be like a drum solo or any kind of synth, like even Bruno Mars, like Versace on the Floor, he has like a keyboard solo at the end. It doesn't have to be a piano solo, a keyboard solo. It could really be anything. If you want to introduce like a novel idea. Because for me, like I could always go on and on about the music theory that I did and all of the how I, you know, picked the melody and stuff. And I'm definitely happy to do that at some point. But I think what I want you to get out of this video, whether you're a listener, like someone who's just interested in music and how things are done, I want you to kind of get an appreciation for what goes involved into doing something like this, to try and making something that's kind of not typical of a certain genre fit and hopefully work out. I mean, evidently, you know, people like it and UFO RECORDZ picked it up. So it wasn't like some, you know, it worked to some extent, you know what I mean? But what I wanted to do in this video is show you, you know, how to incorporate a new idea into music and see how that's done from a listener point of view. And as a producer, I wanted to show this to show that, you know, if you have some kind of weird idea and people are like, what, that's a stupid idea. Or like, why would you do that? These are 3 things that you could do to introduce that idea, and that way they don't pick on you and be like, oh, you're stupid. Then you could do this and you'd be like, oh yeah, no, it's not stupid. See, now it sounds really, you know, like really good. So yeah, I want to show you the first thing I did, which was foreshadowing. So you can listen to the track on Spotify. I'll put the link below. But in this particular song, I'm going to show you what I did to foreshadow. Here we go. So you could hear the full song obviously on your own. But for this moment, in the very beginning of the song, I'm introducing these piano chords just to get the listener kind of attuned to what sounds I'm going to be using later. They don't know this yet. They just hear like, cool piano chords over a bass line. But in any case, I give them a little tease in the beginning, and then you go later in the song. So for this is actually right before the first chorus, in the pre-chorus essentially. And what I did is I took obviously the same sounds as before, and I did a little bit something like in the beginning it was like putting your foot in the water. Like it's like, okay, let's expose the listener to some cool chords and just the sound that I'm gonna be using later. They don't know what's going on, obviously. But in this pre-chorus where there is a lot of space, I'm using that space to foreshadow what I'm gonna be doing later. So in this pre-chorus, I have this like cool little piano lick that's filling the space while, it breaks it up because even though the group behind it could just as easily not have this. I'm like, okay, well, it could not have it, but this could also be the perfect space to give a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a foreshadow of what's going to happen. So here I am in the song, right before the first pre-chorus, just kind of throwing this in, trying to just foreshadow, get the listener ready for what's coming up. So that way when it happens, they're not like, what the hell, there's a piano solo, and like they didn't hear any kind of context. So that's what I did there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the actual piano solo. I'm going to solo it intermittently so you can actually really focus on what the piano's doing. And this is right after the first verse. So at this point, I've already introduced the sound, essentially the texture, the notes, the kind of ideas I'm going to be doing. It's not totally new to the ear, to the listener. So now when it happens, they kind of know they have some context. So it's not like, all of a sudden I'm doing these piano chords and they hear the sound, they're like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? So here's what I do.
I bet you got this.
I bet you got this.
Cool. So I wanted to just kind of play the whole piano solo since that's what we're talking about. So from point number one, it was foreshadowing. So what I did was earlier, like just to recap, earlier I played some of the keyboard, did some really cool jazzy things just to kind of get in the listener's mind that, okay, this is like a part of the song and they're exposed to it before I really just kind of take it and run with it. You know what I mean? So this is the idea. You introduce it in small bits just to kind of, feed them a little bit. That way it's not completely off the wall. So when it comes in, especially for something this drastic, you got to do that. Otherwise, if I just start on the piano solo, it would have been kind of cool, but then definitely some people would be like, what the hell's going on? But this kind of takes away from the what the hell's going on factor. So now they're at least a little bit more ready for it, which brings me to my second point, which is, we did the foreshadowing and now it is the pick the right spot for introducing this idea. So what I did was I waited until we're into the song, especially with a lot of this like EDM stuff. I feel like it's like 4 or 5 minute vibes. So it's definitely like there's plenty of space to add stuff. And for me, I'm not really a vibe guy. Like I don't want to listen to a track for 5 to 7 minutes. That kind of sounds the same. I don't want to go out of my way to hear that unless I'm doing something else. Like, because obviously music, you could do it it satisfies a lot of different needs. And if I want to listen to a song and get hooked on a song, not only do I want it to create a vibe that I could get lost in, but I want to compositionally be interested in the song the whole way through. So what I did was, we're after the second verse and it's starting to get a little bit old in my opinion, like after the second verse, because it's kind of a slow moving song. As far as like the verses, like it's just very straightforward, kicks on the 1, 2, 3, 4s and pads that don't really do much. And Kittrix's vocal sounds great. And the drop that she does is cool. But now that we kind of have this pretense, we have this idea of what the song is, I want to really drag the rug from underneath the listener and from what I already established before, and run with an idea that, you know, kind of take them on this journey that they're not expecting, but also don't necessarily they aren't fully surprised by. So what I did is I picked this moment in the song because I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? I want to do a roaring piano solo, but I don't want to do it for like 8 measures. I want to take him on this journey of starting really slow and then building it up. So I had to pick the right spot for it. So this is where I picked.
I bet you got this.
So how it worked is that line, I bet you got this. What is really cool about that, in my opinion, that I was able to pull off is the last line is I bet you got this. And that's like almost like a cue for the piano to come in where it's like, I bet you got this. And then now it's like, oh, the piano's got this. You know what I mean? So I picked that spot. The line facilitated it definitely because it's like, I bet you got this. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Now piano solo. And now, like I said, the listener's been exposed. We're starting to get a little bit, I mean, personally for me, compositionally, I get bored really easily. I was starting to get bored of the track, but now it's like, oh, like this is definitely new and not completely expected, but I picked the spot intentionally because I could create some space, which is what I'm going to go into in a minute. I broke up the structure and I also set it up so now I could really pick the right spot. So I picked this spot so that way it would bring more life to the song and keep the listener engaged. And then what I wanted to do to bring it home is create some space. So like I said, I wanted to do a piano solo that was really like a wildfire, like storm. But, you know, if you want to do something that's really big, you want it to evolve. You don't want to just like throw a bunch of chords and shit, because I feel like when novice composers, like they want to make something really difficult, so they just put a bunch of notes. But the trick I feel like for me is if you ever want to like really, if you want to do a roaring piano solo to really, you know, bring a song home, you want to like start mellow, because then that way when it happens, it's like a fire and it's not like, oh, it's not like you're like mumbling and like trying to mumble the solo out. So this is what I did. I created space.
I bet you got this.
Cool. So what's cool about that is I created space by you hear the bass frequencies pretty much all the way in this, like throughout this whole song, pretty much up till this point. So, you know, during the pre-chorus, right before the drop or the chorus, whatever. I'll just show you instead of singing like crap. So that's like the only place where it doesn't have a lot of bass, but the thing is you still feel that groove. So what I did over here to create space is I took out pretty much everything but the pads and this syncopated clap rhythm. And that clap rhythm, what's unique about it is it kind of slows down. It keeps the groove of the song, so the song doesn't die. But because you don't have a kick or any kind of low end kind of driving, you know, the actual tempo, it keeps the song moving. But the absence of bass, like kick and bass frequencies, makes it so that way there's like no ground. So what I do there is that's me creating space. And also in the piano, you have space. So obviously, you know, I start with just these hell out chords.
I bet you got this.
So what's really cool about that, in my opinion, is what I do is, you know, you feel this groove, and I cut the claps at the very last couple measures because I want to essentially go back into what we had, that kind of groove. But how I do it is I make in the piano, I kind of go into like, it's almost like you feel like it's in 3/4, digga digga dun, digga digga dun, digga digga dun, digga digga dun. And what's cool, why I did this is that way I could really launch into this verse by taking advantage of this absence of low end and the absence of ground bass frequencies. Right here, all it is just a sustain. This is all that's going on. So obviously you hear, you know, some movement going on in the pads, but other than that, that's it. So what I do is I take advantage of this momentary like lapse of time and structure, And I confuse the listener at first by doing this 3/4 kind of thing, but then it just rolls like effortlessly into the next verse. And what that has on the listener is you have, like I said, now we've broken up the song. We foreshadowed this keyboard solo, and then we created, we picked the spot, when the song was starting to kind of get a little bit old, in my opinion. And I created space. So now it's all about the piano. So compositionally, you don't have to, I'm not even speaking in terms of like music theory or piano or whatever, like what key it is. But the thing is I introduced this novel idea by foreshadowing. And then I pick a spot where it could use, a little bit of excitement. And then I create enough space to where I could expose the listener, kind of ease them into this keyboard solo. And then what I do is I take advantage of all this absence of rhythm and stuff. All you hear is this pad, but I really start taking off because, like I said, I want to have like a roaring piano solo. I have a bunch of space before it. And then I have a momentarily, like, you don't know what the signature is almost. You feel it still because it's a house track and you got to always feel it. But this creates a lot of excitement to where when I start going into this piano solo, it's like it all just falls into place. So, because I could have just easily started the solo like this. Or like this, right here.
I bet you got this.
And that would have been cool too, not gonna lie, if you just started right after that, I bet you got this, and then it just goes into that kind of thing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to really drag it out, and I really wanted to hit where this already hits. So instead of just starting there, like, I just kind of like mumbling, just spitting a bunch of notes, I set it up with a lot of space, and then I use this momentarily like absent, of all this low end or all this, you don't feel any tempo here. And then I just roll into that. And now when over here, you just want to start moving. Like, it's not because like I create enough space over here to where now you really want to hear that kick again because you haven't heard it. And I just roll into it. And now this like goes down like fine whiskey. You know what I mean? So just so you can hear it.
I bet you got this.
So yeah, those are the three things. And also another thing to do, just like a little bonus tip or whatever, is you want whatever your novel idea to really mimic what's going around. So what I did was, the drop was coming obviously structurally. So what I did was I played with that. So obviously the drop's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that's crazy. So I didn't want to do a bunch of like really like smooth lines over here like I did. Like all this like, there's a lot more variation over here. What I did over here is I made the rhythm a lot more predictable because you have a lot of stuff going on in the music. So to keep up with the fire of what's happening in the music, I would repeat certain ideas. And like it's more predictable. So that means if this is more predictable, this could be allowed to do a lot of more crazy stuff. And I'm working with the music. Like it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of repetition. When you get repetition, you get a little bit more energy, like kind of kinetically, I guess. And so it builds with this music. And then obviously over here, when the music calms down, what do I do? I create space, and this is like the simmer down because I could have just kept rambling just like I did over here. But now it's like, this is like for me compositionally, we started with this open space. It builds over here. This is the climax. You have a bunch of repetitive phrases and lines and stuff that I'm using. And then over here, after that sick drop that Kittrix did, this is the calm down. Like, okay, I'm going to calm down with the music, but I'm still going to put some jabs in. Like if I was a boxer, I just like here. Just kind of like, I'm still here, but that's what I wanted to do. I created the space and then I kind of jabbed a little bit and then I had a little kiss at the end. And now we're Gucci because now she's going and it comes to this nice little ending to where she's going, the chorus is going, and then the song just rides out. So yeah, so just to recap, what I did is if you want to introduce, whether it's a piano solo or whatever kind of solo we want to do, is you want to foreshadow it ideally. I mean, it just helps. If it's something that's super crazy, you want to foreshadow a little bit more. But if it's like a solo, like, this, like, you could get away with like adding a solo in the middle, like kind of Versace on the floor, and then it won't sound crazy necessarily. It's just a matter of, you're always playing with that what the hell factor with the audience because you don't want them to be like, what the hell's going on? You want to, if you can, foreshadow, or if not, it's really got to be placed well. And that goes to the second thing is you want to find the right place to do whatever crazy idea you have. So what I did here is the song was starting to get a little bit, it was just kind of running on for a little bit. So I'm like, okay, let's break it up with this novel idea after foreshadowing it. So that way, like I said, the listener is engaged now because now I'm introducing a whole new concept and I'm piquing their interest right when they're starting to tune out. That's essentially what I want to do in every song is as soon as the listener starts tuning out, I want to introduce an idea. That way they're always hooked. So whether you're creating a vibe or not, if you're just making a song for this listener to really enjoy, you always want to kind of keep them hooked. You don't want them to know exactly what's going on. Especially with my style, I always want to kind of keep them guessing. And the third thing that I did was I created space for this idea. So, when there's a bunch of stuff happening, you don't want to throw in this weird idea on top of it. Especially with this, like I wanted to have a roaring piano solo. I wanted to have plenty of space possible to set it up. And then I just ran with it at the end. And then the bonus little tip thing is if you're doing a weird idea, don't make it just like some weird idea and then, oh, that music happens to be there. Like build with the music, calm down with the music, and then just give it a little kiss at the end. So I really appreciate you guys for listening to this video. I hope it helps. As you can see, I'm speaking really generic terms, and this is just all the craziness that happens in my head. And with these videos, I just want to kind of give you a glimpse into how I think as a music producer and as a listener, just kind of tell you about the effort. Because a lot of times I'll hear music and it just all happens so cleanly, you know what I mean? And without any apparent thought. And this is what kind of goes behind doing something as crazy as adding a piano solo over a tech house track. So thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you guys. And feel free to like and subscribe. And as usual, you can check out what I'm doing at JayPhoenixMusic.com. Thanks for watching.
JayPhoenix.